everyone. Welcome to our future gaming event. Thank you all for being here. Quick poll. For how many of you is this your first refresh event? Oh, wow. That's a big show. So to tell you a little bit more about Refresh Miami, we are the largest tech and entrepreneur organization in Florida. We have about 9,000 members. Our mission is to continue to grow the South Florida tech community and also to foster innovation. So we host these events once a month, and we also host some workshops as well. So we always are trying to encourage people to kind of further their education in tech, go to workshops, network with other tech individuals. So we hope you'll make it to some of our future events. Just quick, this is the team. I'm sure most of these people don't need any introduction, but we have Brian, who actually founded Refresh 10 years ago. Peter, oh, there he is. Then we have Josh out front. So we're a small team, but if you have any questions, feel free to come up to either one of us. Oh, it's later. This event couldn't be possible without our sponsors for tonight, which is AT&T GigaPower. I'm going to bring Ariana up real quick to give you guys a little bit more information on AT&T's GigaPower.
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Ariana Johar. I'm the local market lead for AT&T GigaPower. I cover all of Florida, but I primarily cover the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. And for those of you who don't know what AT&T GigaPower is, it's our 100% fiber optic network. It's built all the way to the home, and it allows for internet speeds that are symmetrical. So both download and upload up to 1 gigabit per second. So essentially, it provides for the latest, Wi-Fi technology, a best-in-class experience in your home for all of your devices and for your gaming needs. We launched a little less than a year ago in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, and we continue to expand our coverage month over month. So I encourage you, if you have any questions, to ask me. I'll be out hanging out outside after this, answer any questions you guys have. You could get some goodies, and we hope to see you guys at future Refresh events. We're very proud to support Refresh Miami and very proud to sponsor this event. Okay, thank you.
So another big thanks to one of our other sponsors that's in the audience tonight, Mike Simpkins from the Simpkins Family Foundation. So everyone give him a round of applause. He's here with his son who wants to go into game development. So we couldn't do this obviously without our sponsors and we're always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. My email is maria@refreshmiami. We're always looking to kind of expand the team. So please feel free. And we also are trying to get to know you guys all better. So we are sending out a survey. You'll receive it at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Kind of getting to know a little bit more about you, what your role is in tech, what topics you want to see, where we should be hosting our events, what neighborhood makes sense. So please answer that, and it'll be really helpful for us to continue to improve. A quick thing before we get started, we're also hosting a workshop this Saturday on the Beginner's Guide to Unity 3D. One of our speakers, Evian's actually going to be running it. So if you're interested, there's still time to get tickets. Just go to our page and you can sign up via Eventbrite. And if you have any questions, I'm sure he can definitely answer them after the panel. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Brian, who's going to introduce our speakers.
Cool. So thanks everybody for coming. And especially for all of the newbies who've never been here before to a Refresh event. I think this is like our 115th or 120th event now. I've lost track. It's been 10 years. So. But I'm so pleased to see this crowd growing every year over year. So thank you guys for coming. And this is going to be a very informal, sort of conversation about the industry, your experiences, where you see it going, and what excites you about the gaming industry. Because gaming's been a big industry here in South Florida for a while, but I don't think people outside of South Florida know how big it is here and stuff. So, and I honestly can't give your bios enough justice, so why don't you guys go through and introduce yourselves?
Sure. So, Kevin Washilewski, CEO of originPC. I'm a huge gamer myself, so thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to answering questions about any game, whether it's mobile, whether it's PC related. originPC, we build custom high-performance desktops and laptops. I've been doing that for about 6 years. Before that, I did it for 10 years with Alienware with my friend Frank over here. And yeah, looking forward to talking to everyone.
Cool, thanks for coming.
Hello, I'm Abiyan. As it says up there, Alvarez-Guya, yes. In case you find other Abiyans lying around. Yeah, I worked most recently in Sega Networks doing free-to-play mobile games, and I've been doing game development for the past 10 years or so. So mostly the technical side, doing programming and etc. A bit of a generalist, a bunch of different technologies. And I'm the one who will be teaching the Unity workshop, so come back if you're interested.
Hi, I'm Frank Azor. I'm the general manager for the Alienware and XPS business units at Dell. That means that all the Alienware and XPS branded products and all the business and all those teams and everything give me trouble all day and make my life live in hell. Which is why there's a lot more hair in that picture than there is now. I look a lot better up there than I do now. But now I have, I think, one of the best jobs in the world. I get to make fancy toys and play with all the fancy toys that are out there, like HTC, Oculus, and all the other cool VR stuff that's coming along. So I'm really thankful for being invited to the panel. And despite what people think, Kevin and I are actually really, really good friends. We're not mortal enemies, so this is not awkward for us. We get together all the time.
Oh, I thought Evian was the buffer on purpose.
We did.
So why don't you guys talk about, Alienware has been a big part of the community for, what, 20 years almost, or 15? I don't know, how long?
This year we'll celebrate 20 years, yeah.
So, like, why don't you guys give the crowd a little bit of backstory? Like, how did Alienware come to be here in Miami, and like, you know, then the acquisition from Dell and all that stuff? Like, why, you know, you guys want to elaborate on that, or?
Sure. We'll try to keep it friendly.
Sure.
1996, Alienware was started with the simple vision of, if you're trying to remember what 1996 looked like, it was very different than what it looks like today. You had a DOS operating system, a Windows operating system, 16-bit architecture, 32-bit architecture, 2D video cards, 3D video cards were starting to emerge, 3D sound cards were starting to emerge. It was hell. And the founder's idea was what everybody was doing in PC, to play PC games at the time, is they were taking boxes from like Compaq and Gateway, or building their own stuff and just struggling in being able to get games to work. And then when something went wrong, you were kind of on your own. So you pretty much had to be like an IT certified technician to be able to get this stuff to work. So they saw an opportunity for folks that didn't want to go through all those headaches. They just wanted to play at the time Doom and Quake and stuff, and have a turnkey system to allow them to do that. And they built a couple systems, sent them out to magazines, got some great reviews, and here we are today.
Cool. So originPC is sort of the next evolution of what Alienware started doing, or it's sort of a segue from it, or how do you describe how you, like, your decision to start originPC and what you wanted to stand for and all that?
So Alienware was, you know, some of the best times of my life, and helping grow that company, and you know, we had no idea it was going to be that big. But Frank and I started at an early age, and we obviously knew something was going to happen because we were spending a lot of time there. I put college on hold and said, you know what, I'm going to just dedicate myself to this company and see what happens. Little did we know it would grow as big as it grew, become the name of gaming PCs worldwide. And then the Dell acquisition happened, and stayed for 2 years. Things changed, and I decided, you know what, I want to move in a different direction. I don't want to work for Dell. So we're sort of like a spin-off, you could say. So myself and two other old school Alienware guys, we founded originPC in 2009, and things have been growing great. You know, we specialize in ultra custom, ultra high-end. So we're similar to Alienware, but we're different. We're in different categories. So, you know, we're sort of a spin-off.
So I remember back in the mid-90s when Alienware was taking off, I was in high school, and I was going up to those little electronics stores near the airport to buy parts and stuff. I don't know if are they still around? Yeah? And like, but I remember it was a constant battle to, like, basically you have to keep upgrading your video cards, your GPUs and all that stuff, and because the games kept outpacing the hardware. Are we still seeing that as a challenge? Like, are the games outpacing the hardware now, or is the hardware outpacing the games from like a capability standpoint? Or is that a stupid question?
No, that's a really good question. Yeah, at one point, the games were really crippling the hardware, back in the days of Crisis. can never end crisis. Nowadays, the hardware is pretty much in the lead. However, we have this thing called VR. So Oculus just shipped, HTC Vive is about to ship. The games for those headsets are recommended to run at today's hardware, but somebody somewhere is working on some sort of app that's going to cripple your hardware, guaranteed. So right now the hardware is a little bit in the lead, but if you want to stream, if you want to do 4K, if you want to render videos at the same time, you do need a high-end PC.
So do you guys think that, and maybe you can answer this, alright, this is, do you think that this is gonna, like VR and Oculus and all these other similar accessories, I guess you call them, are gonna drive another wave of people buying new computers because the tower that they had that they were playing games on like 2 years ago isn't gonna run Oculus now. So they're gonna have to be forced to go.
So approximately 4% of people have a PC that's capable of running Oculus min-spec or HTC min-spec today. So I think the other 96%, not all of them, are going to be interested in VR on day one, but a pretty decent chunk of them are. And a large portion, especially of the early adopter market, is just going to go and DIY their own system, and that's perfectly fine. It's a little bit of a headache, I got to tell you. To set up an Oculus rig and an HTC rig, both companies have done a really good job of trying to simplify it as much as possible, but there are dependencies that you just can't get over, that a lot of folks that try and DIY are going to run into these issues, and they're going to realize there may be either more trouble than it's worth to overcome the issues, and or the investment they're going to have to make to overcome the issues is not going to be that much less than just getting a turnkey rig that you're going to actually have full 24/7 tech support with and all that stuff, which is extremely valuable as well. And he's probably thinking, Frank, what could be so hard? I take out my crappy video card and I put a 970 in it and I call it a day. It's not that easy. If your USB controller doesn't perform in a certain way, if you don't have the right drivers, the right BIOS, just a lot of variables, as down to as basic as what USB controller you have, that can really interfere with the performance of the system. And when you dropped a frame playing games the old way, it was annoying, right? You just saw a slideshow and you're like, shit, that sucks. When you drop frames in VR, you start vomiting. It's a very different reaction. So you can't really afford to screw around with this and compromise on the experience, because it'll go from acceptable to unacceptable. There's really no bar in between.
Right. So, VR has been around for ages. I remember the Nintendo all red VR thing they had. Why do you think that's sort of that segment of the market stalled out and didn't keep pace with all the other aspects of the gaming market? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm not super qualified over the hardware guys to opine on this, but I think the Virtual Boy was a good example of technology before its time, right? If any of us who played it have fond memories of crippling headaches after playing it, right? Because it was just, the refresh rate was garbage, and it was just, the technology was just, it was trying to do a lot more than what it could do. And we're seeing a little bit of that with the first generation of VR, and now with the new releases, there's claim that it fixes that, but it's going to be a little bit of a tech barrier. I was talking to Frank earlier about this, and I do think that it's a question of not if it's going to be successful in the market, just when. And I just think we have varying opinions as to when that when is gonna hit. But yeah, I think the tech is right now, and I think the market is right as far as people who are ready to make that investment, not only monetarily but also sort of culturally, right? Like buying a VR headset, in the 90s, that would have been some weird super nerd thing to do, right? Even having a computer was whoa, you have a computer, you have Encarta, and you can do your homework with it, right? It's crazy. But nowadays, it's such a normal thing.
I'm pretty sure 30% of people
I'm sorry,
have never even heard
Encarta
of
was
Encarta.
encyclopedia.
And they also don't know what encyclopedias
It
are.
came on a CD, which is this thing that spins around.
Before Wikipedia, there was something called an encyclopedia, which you paid $1,000 a year for. And somebody came to your door and knocked and tried to sell it to you, the updated editions.
And they're all unemployed now. Those poor encyclopedia salesmen.
I think back to your question about why now. versus Virtual Boy 20 years ago or whatever. If you look at just the world and technology today, there are a lot of different elements that are different today than the environment that Virtual Boy tried to succeed in at its time. One, it was the graphics horsepower that we had back then was a tiny fraction as to what we have today. So even if they understood and knew that they had to get to 90 frames per second and have almost no latency and solve all these problems to prevent you from getting sick and getting the headaches, they didn't have the silicon to be able to go off and do that. They didn't have any of the tech to be able to do it. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is really around content itself. Back then we used to get content on cartridges, if you recall, and you used to have to go to retail and all of that, and pretty much every game was $29 or something like that. Today,
Now they're $29 a month.
today, the way in which we deliver that content is completely different. The amount of content that's out there is completely different as well, right? So to go build content for Virtual Boy, Nintendo either had to build it themselves in a big studio or go and convince 2 or 3 huge studios out there. Today, we've got tens of thousands of indie studios out there that, since Oculus has been putting out DK1, DK2, and HTC's been putting out their dev kits, we've been getting just this huge surge of content coming from one guy in his garage or gal in his garage to 100 people in a company that are trying to kind of diversify their portfolio and get into this new segment. So the community is much bigger. Gaming as a whole is considerably larger than it was 20 years ago. So, I mean, you add up kind of all of these elements, and it's really a factor of timing. I think the timing is perfect right now. Versus, you know, what Nintendo was facing back then, the timing just wasn't right. I mean, I can give you another example of how big of a difference timing makes with a product or an industry. Tablets. Some people think that Apple invented the tablet. They didn't actually invent the tablet. Microsoft was one of the first companies to invent the tablet PC. And I was messing around with tablet computers like 15 years ago. But the timing wasn't right for that product. Fast forward and bam, you know, Apple launches the iPad, what, a decade ago or so, 8 years ago? And it's a huge success. 5-inch smartphones, they're pretty ridiculous. If he suggested a 5-inch smartphone 6 years ago, I mean, people laughed at you. The first company to launch a 5-inch smartphone was actually Dell, believe it or not. And we sat on it for like 2 years because we thought, who the hell would carry a 5-inch thing to their phone? It looks ridiculous. Now you look at the phones we were using back then, and they look like candy bars, and they look ridiculous, and you can't imagine how I was using a 3.5-inch phone back then. And it's again a factor of timing, right? As our dependency on these devices grew, as our desire to combine tablet and smartphone form factors into one grew, and then all these other factors kind of combined, the timing made perfect sense to start introducing 5-inch, 6-inch smartphones. So timing's everything.
So talking about smartphones then, so how do you guys see that changing the dynamics of the market you guys are working in the gaming in general? Like, you've seen a lot of like casual games sort of shift entirely to smartphones, right? And then hardcore games have shifted either stayed on PCs or gone to consoles. But like, where do you guys see the dynamics shifting around in that space? Or
So basically, how are smartphone games affecting hardcore PC gamers and hardware?
sure.
So I love that question because Frank and I have gotten this question for many, many, many years. At Alienware, at originPC, we're always selling, expensive, high-end gaming PCs. Somebody comes around with a $200, $500 console, and everybody says, "Oh my gosh, the console is going to kill the gaming PC." Now it's a different story. Mobile games. Oh, mobile games are blowing up. Mobile games that's where it's at. That's where the Super Bowl commercials are. Is that affecting your business? Is that hurting you guys? Absolutely not. It's helping us. Because the more people that try these mobile games and get hooked on, wow, this is a fun experience. I didn't think I was a gamer. Now I'm a gamer. Wow, what else is out there? What's even better than mobile gaming? That maybe they find a console, maybe they find PC games, and then when they find PC gaming, the holy grail of gaming, they realize, wow, this is the best gaming experience possible.
So do you guys see a huge overlap with most of your customers having both the high-end rig and console?
Absolutely, yes. They have a gaming PC, they have a smartphone when they're gaming, when they're, on the toilet or whatnot, and they have a gaming.
Is that where you do most of your gaming, Kevin, on the toilet?
I do most of my gaming everywhere.
Well, one of the things we learned a long time ago is people don't play devices, they play games. So wherever the entertainment is, they'll follow it wherever it goes, right? So, I mean, there's some great mobile games that are very entertaining, and certain environments only allow for mobile gaming. The toilet may be one of them, on an airplane may be one of them. There's just certain environments where, okay, I can't pull out a notebook or I can't exactly plug in a console, but I play games on, and I'm enjoying a certain game on my tablet or on my phone, and if that environment allows for that entertainment, you pull up the device to play the game. The device is just a gateway. And Kevin's absolutely right. I remember when the Xbox launched, it was doom and gloom for PC. No one will ever do PC gaming again. PC gaming is the largest industry right now out of all, PC versus console, right? So, and a large part as to why PC gaming has thrived is because it's an open architecture, and because it's open, innovation occurs in many different ways. You get innovation, of course, in graphics and in gameplay and all of those things. You get the ability for anybody, like we were saying, an indie of 1 to an indie of 100 to be able to develop for this platform with no politics and none of the issues of trying to convince a company to license their brand or allow them to go off on the platform. But you also get innovation in business models as well. We've seen almost all new business models that we almost practice today every day and how we play our games actually start off on the PC. The monthly subscription was something that PC started. Free-to-play games was something that PC started. DLC was something that PC started, right? So almost all these economies now that the consoles are like, oh wow, this is a really good business model. A lot of it started because there were no constraints, and it wasn't just 10,000 people at a headquarters of a company thinking through what they can do next. It was 10 billion people figuring out, what we can do and innovate, and how we can go make this thing, compelling and disruptive, content-wise, business-wise, everything-wise.
So Evian, this is actually a good segue for you, because you worked for a company that was originally famous for console games and then started shifting towards mobile games. What was that experience like in trying to translate a big screen TV experience to a small screen?
Yeah, so normally you don't start sort of trying to port a PC game onto mobile or a console game onto mobile. That's just a terrible idea. Nobody really does that anymore. I think when mobile was a new technology, that's what folks were trying to think was a quick win, right? Let's just take our Super Mario or whatever and just launch it as is, and that just turned out to be a terrible idea. I think there were also growing pains as far as the company model, right? For companies that had the traditional developer-publisher model, right, where I'm the developer and I write some code and I make something pretty, and then I show it to you and you're the business guy and you're like, oh, well, I have concerns with the size of this thing, and that's exactly how you talk. And that's how you talk. And so that's a thing of the past as well, right? Most modern sort of free-to-play or microtransaction-based games or even ad-driven games that you're seeing on mobile are built by a cohesive sort of agile team that marries the business and the game design as one part of the cycle, right? And for Sega, for example, we spent a couple of years like even just figuring out how that worked, how to work with each other, how to not have this us and them relationship, how to have a sort of we're all in this team working together, right? And I know a lot of other folks are going through a similar bit of growing pain, but it's just a matter of time, right? Folks who are entering the industry now potentially haven't even worked in that kind of developer publisher kind of relationship and just work in this kind of one company that, as Frank was saying, because we have so many outlets and so many easy ways for folks to just like go ahead and put the game out, there isn't the need anymore for a physical manufacturer to produce a box and get it out there and hawk it around to Walmart and whatnot, right? Now you can just make your game and put it on the iPhone for $100, right? And that's a one-time fee or a yearly fee or whatever, right? So it's not cost prohibitive at all. So yeah, I mean, it's a changing climate on the business end, and it's like you guys hit upon. As far as the demographics of who we're seeing playing games, people are still playing hardcore PC games as good as always, or even more, right? And it's just, we've introduced entire new genres and entire new segments and entire new demographics that didn't exist 10 years ago. And yeah, casual games have shifted away from, so early casual games were on PC and they've shifted away more onto mobile. But mobile also has its brand of sort of hardcore games, right? The sort of Game of War type of games that have this like very, it's not a traditional kind of hardcore label as you might consider from like the sort of Call of Duty kind of space coming from PC or console. But there are people who their entire life is playing, Game of War, right? And that's a very invested demographic that really didn't even exist, 5 to 10 years ago.
So, all right, that's an interesting take on this. All right, so one of the things that I'm curious about, as far as what you guys think, as like the Steam consoles, right? So that was really hyped up, and I used to be a gamer. I'm not an active gamer now, just because I haven't been hooked.
Then why are you on the stage?
Because I organized this event. That's why.
Good answer.
But that's a good question. And we should have had someone who was an actual hardcore gamer, but they were all busy playing games. But what I'm curious about is like, so Steam consoles. So Steam was this like as a Steam box or whatever. That was hyped up a lot. But do you guys think that still has a place in the market, or is it? Did it catch on as much as you expected it to, or not? Or like, give me the rundown on it.
As someone who has invested considerably in the Steam Machine concept, what I'll tell you is I'll go back to timing. When we started working on Steam Machine, we were in an environment where I don't know that Windows had been hated any more in its history than it was when Windows 8 came out. And I don't think Microsoft had demonstrated with the launch of Windows 8, with any prior operating system launched before that, how much at that time it didn't give a crap about PC gamers. And the timing was right for somebody to come out with a system that was focused on PC gamers and that delivered an experience that was compelling, and that was everything Microsoft wasn't willing to deliver at the time. And that's why I think you saw a lot of the hype, because there was demand, there was a real problem, and we as an industry needed a real solution. Well, fast forward to being a year late to that plan, and how much can change in a year, it's pretty remarkable. Microsoft goes from Windows 8 to Windows 10. Windows 10 has a focus on gamers, it has DX12. They make commitments around bringing Xbox games to the PC, allowing for Xbox streaming. They start solving the problems that they created. And at that time, at the same time, the Steam Machine platform, largely because of the gamepad, quite honestly, was going to be a year late from when it was originally scheduled to launch. And at that point, the demand and the problems that existed when we conceived the Steam Machine concept, they didn't exist anymore. Today, Windows 10 is a phenomenal platform for gamers. It's not perfect, but it's so much better than what Windows 8 was, and it is the best gaming OS, I would say, of all of them that Microsoft has come out. It's not a gaming OS, but an OS that has gaming consideration within it. So what's the future for Steam Machine? Quite honestly, we're still doing pretty decent business of Steam Machine. The benefit of a Steam Machine is when you plug it in, it just works like an appliance. And it gives you access to thousands of games that are on Steam that you've already paid for most of these games. So you don't have to reinvest in these games. And as the Steam Machine platform evolves, whenever we launch Steam Machine 2, 3, 4, you don't have to rebuy all your games like you do every time a new console launches. And you have that insurance, you know you have that guarantee. So for folks that just want something that turns on and it works, attached to their television set, they never want to have to pull out a keyboard and mouse and deal with those headaches, we have that solution for them, and we expect it's going to continue to increase in its popularity as more and more of the content comes over, and then eventually as VR comes over to Steam Machine as well. But most importantly, in the meantime, we got to make sure that Microsoft doesn't do to us again what they did to us with Windows 8, and Steam Machine for our industry is a way to help ensure that we're keeping them in check.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying that. So then, what do you guys think is like the most exciting thing that's going to happen in the next 6 months in the industry?
Well, we have the VR demos out here, right? So you have VR, HTC Vive is shipping next month. Oculus is shipping right now. I mean, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
That is the most exciting thing right now, in the next 6 months as well. That's the hardware. The software is really what makes a difference. Like Frank said, gamers are loyal to the content. So, you know, we don't know yet. We don't know what the killer app is going to be for VR.
Yeah.
So in the next 6 months, I think we're going to find out what's the most exciting one game or a few games that are really going to push VR.
I agree 100% with Kevin. VR is an extremely exciting thing for us right now. When you look at the way in which we've improved PC gaming from an immersion perspective over the last 10 years maybe, it's been primarily a resolution game, a frame rate game, and improving, of course, the audio experience and doing everything we possibly can with a flat screen to make it as immersive as possible. But it's been a very small step, incremental evolution in order to get very little improvement in immersion factor. VR is like a giant leap for immersion and for content. And over the next 6 months, I think we're going to see an incredible amount of titles being developed for VR. Because if you're a content developer today, one of the biggest, you would be better qualified to answer, to share this, but we speak to a lot of content developers, and their frustration right now is if they're developing for mobile, discovery is like nearly impossible because there's just so much stuff up there, and like 20 apps dominate pretty much everything that's out there. If you're building for Steam right now, discovery is an extremely big challenge. And in order to rise above the noise, you have to have either an incredible PR team, an incredible amount of marketing and advertising dollars, or some just amazing dumb luck, which rarely happens. VR, there's 30 games on the Oculus Store right now. 30 games. You build something great, and you can be game number 31. So you have a 1 in 31 chance of being discovered. That's a real opportunity. So content developers know this. That's why indie developers, whether they're 50 or 100, most of them have said, hey, let's go set aside 5 people to go work on something in VR, because we could be a big fish in a small pond here versus the other ponds that we're playing in where we're tiny. So we're going to see a lot of interesting content. I think what's more exciting is what are we going to see in the next 6 years? And I think VR will play a role in a lot of different factors in our life that today we kind of think of it as a gaming solution, and it is. That's where it started. But when we talk to different customers out there, they come to us and they're coming to us and saying, hey, we want to use VR as an architecture solution because when we want to present our drawings to our customers, today we have to do it on a piece of paper or on a screen, and that there's problems with that. You can't get presence. You can't really understand the scale of the building that we're designing, and there's just a lot of tools that you have when you do something in VR that it's almost impossible to do, if not completely impossible on a flat screen. And those are extremely valuable, especially when you're doing the architecture for a $100 million stadium, for example. And if you can't afford to get something wrong for that customer who's paying, because at the end of the day, if they're not happy, you're going to end up having to do the rework. So to spend $50,000 on a set of VR rigs to save $5 million, that's, I mean, a no-brainer, right? We have medical companies coming to us that want to use VR for all types of different things, for therapy solutions. One company is coming to us because apparently one of the ways to get over a phobia is to deal with the phobia, to have to introduce the phobia. Well, if I have arachnophobia, for example, the last thing I want you to do is put a spider in front of me. But in VR, if I know it's fake and you slowly introduce it to me over time, I always remind myself that it's fake, and it helps me get over a lot of those fears before I actually have to deal with the real fear itself. So, I mean, all these weird corner cases that you're like, whoa, this is pretty interesting. And then you get into the way in which we traditionally consume content, like TV or movie theaters. I mean, Samsung and Six Flags did a deal now where you're going to ride a Six Flags roller coaster, you're going to wear Gear VR, and it's going to feel like you're in another environment, right? Roller coasters, I never thought that, honestly. But think about going to a movie theater, and why do we go to a movie theater? We go because it offers a greater immersion factor than what we can get at home. It's a bigger screen, it's a better audio experience, or we just want to get the hell out of the house. So either one of those 3 cases, you put a VR headset on somebody and the immersion factor goes up, astronomically in being in that theater. But why the hell would I go to a theater to go and experience that when I can just do it at home? Well, because what the theater is going to give you is going to be like a $10,000 VR headset versus what you'll be able to buy at home or take home, which may be a $2,000 experience. So they'll offer something superior to what you're able to get at home. So, I just touched on 4 industries that will potentially be disrupted by this. Today I saw something that was pretty remarkable. Live sporting events with like 38K resolution cameras surrounding the stadium, and you can go in and do a full 360, zoom in, sit on the 50-yard line, do all of that stuff in a VR headset. And it's live, it's working. They did it at the NBA All-Star Game. So sporting events will be disrupted. You may be paying MLB or NBA $5,000 for season tickets to sit at the 50-yard line with your VR helmet at home instead of actually going to the stadium to do it. All these things could be disrupted. It's pretty amazing.
Do you think there's going to be a socialization negative aspect to this, where people basically are like, screw going out in public, I'm just going to sit at home with my Oculus VR 6 or whatever, and my girlfriend who's in another country is going to be on her Oculus VR 6, and we're watching the same movie at the same time, but we're never going to be in the same room, or people won't go to social spaces anymore because they don't need to, because the experience is better at home than it was in some sense.
So I have to make a confession that I'm actually a little lukewarm on the prospect of VR because of this very question, right? So if you rewind back to the 80s, right, any sci-fi that you saw back then pretty much purported that video calling was going to supersede phone calls, right? And yeah, we have Skype and we have FaceTime and it's a thing, but it wasn't video calling at all. It was something a lot more asynchronous and a lot more hands-off and a lot less intrusive into our social space, which is texting, right, asynchronous communication, that really became like the super huge new way that we communicate with each other. And much like I pessimistically see VR, video calling is somewhat of a niche thing that you do, every once in a while, but it's not sort of like your go-to experience. Because we're social beings, right? So I think that situation of all of us here, just standing here, but not really being here, right, and just being somewhere else. I don't know if you guys have seen these clubs that you go into the club and everybody puts on their own headset and everybody's dancing to their own music. I get it, I get the idea, but I don't know, man. I kind of want to share the experience of listening to the same music, right? I don't think VR yet has figured how to share the music.
Well, let me add to that. You have a really good point. There's going to be some people that are going to say, this VR is so cool, I don't have to leave my house anymore. There's going to be that type of crowd. But let's go back 10 years ago. If you could look into the future 10 years, not VR, let's set that aside. Look at all the other technology we have and all the other access we have. We can get anything in a second on Google on your phone. So 10 years ago, you would have said, man, 10 years from now, if I'm going to have all this access to do all these things and order on Amazon, I'm never going to have to leave my house. I'm going to stay home forever. So you could have said that for other things. So
this is the first time Evian's left his house in 6 months.
Thank you for coming. So yeah, there's going to be some people that are not going to want to leave, and it's going to, but nothing's going to beat the real thing.
Right.
So there'll always be people filling football stadiums to see the live thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be a factor of the person, to Kevin's point, much less what the technology enables. Because to his example, right, there's nothing today that forces me to have to leave my home. Amazon will bring me everything I want to bring me. Whatever it won't bring me, Instacart will bring me. Whatever it doesn't bring me, TaskRabbit will do for me, right? So I don't have to leave for any reason. All my entertainment's there. I can communicate with everybody that I know and I want to communicate with through 15 different channels, if not 150 different channels, whether it be Facebook or traditional phone call or a video conference call or Snapchat, right? I have all these different tools and vehicles to communicate with people. Yet, most of us, except for Evan, go outside every day, right? Or that's something, maybe not every day, but every 2 or 3 days. And we do it for certain reasons, right? And to his point, we're social beings, right? We make these choices because even as real as this virtual environment will become, there are still certain things that are, I don't know how to describe them, but they're different when you're in a physical location, right? And if they weren't, then even the folks that are in this room right now probably wouldn't even be here. They would have just watched the rebroadcast of this thing or downloaded it online or something, right? So there was a factor of being in the room, understanding the body language, feeling the emotions, hearing just all the different factors that are going on that are not going to, I don't think are going to be reproducible in the near term or in the immediate near term. We'll see what happens in the long term. But look, it's unintended consequences. If we all end up like Ready Player One, living in cells, you know, and civilization falls down and all that stuff, even if it ends up happening, it's not a reason today to not innovate and not
I was just busting your balls.
I mean, if you look at PCs and technology and all the good that has come from PCs, right? I mean, an incredible amount of jobs, right? This communication vehicle, this information source through the internet, all these things. It's remarkable. If you only concentrate on the bad things, like the Craigslist killer and all the other horrible things that have happened as a result of the internet and technology, then you say, oh man, you know, this is going to be the fall of civilization. But the good outweighs the bad so much, so exponentially, that you have to trust in people being responsible with their technology, hopefully.
So with all these new technologies, the new VR platforms and all that stuff coming out, what do you think is the opportunity, or what do you think is the first step for people who want to start developing for these platforms?
Get the SDK and get the device, right? Like, I mean, that's really that simple, right? And a lot of folks that I know just went ahead and kickstarted the Oculus and got the SDK, you know, a few months before everybody else, and started cracking on it and started hacking together little games. It's really that easy nowadays, which is amazing, right? I mean, there's really very little barrier. It's a couple $100, right, to pick up this thing that, you know, is an entire platform and that you can just push to the store really easily. So, I mean, I think there are going to be growing pains, like we're talking about earlier, with moving from traditional development to mobile. It's a different system. It's a different way of engaging with the space. It's just a different level of immersion. So the development cycle isn't going to be exactly the same. But I mean, nowadays, you develop on your computer and you see both screens, right, at once, and you can pretty much do 90% of the debugging right there without even needing to put on the headset, right? And then when you want to actually get the feeling of it and be like, all right, what does it feel like? Oh, okay, I want to tweak this, you know, the more sort of kinesthetic sort of like, oh, okay, this feels too big in relation to where I'm at. Then that's when you put on the headset. But development-wise, it's actually completely smooth to jump in, you know, and that's what most folks, like Frank was saying, most companies will just go ahead and put together a little rogue team of a couple of people and just say, here you go, here's a couple of headsets, like, go hack up some stuff and start prototyping.
And I think the really awesome part about everything that's been done so far in VR that I'm at least familiar with is it's not like this brand new proprietary thing that you have to go learn and you have no foundation for, which if this was a VR console, right, the Y-Box VR with a proprietary architecture and a proprietary OS, that would suck. You'd have to go and do all of that. But most, if not all, the games being developed are being developed in Unity. They're being developed in Source, right? What other engines? And Unreal Engine. And if you're a game developer, if you're not already programming on that, you pretty much, you know, you have definitely certain people inside the org that know how to do it. It's not a huge leap. So you're like 90% of the way there already. And if you went to school for game development design, you already know how to do it. It's really a factor of designing, not necessarily developing, designing the game in consideration of the tools that the customer is going to be using, the end user is going to be using. Not so much how do I do it, it's how am I going to design it.
So, I mean, right now there's like at least half a dozen or a dozen companies that are all vying for their own flavor of VR or AR or whatever. Do you think that we're going to see like a winner takes all in this space? Like, is the HoloLens or is the Oculus or is Samsung or Vive or which one of these going to basically become like this is the de facto player and everyone else is just going to commoditize their stuff down to razor thin margins? And
When the internet was 98, 99, was at its peak and it was like going to change the world, it has, but everybody was hyped up on it. The companies that were at the forefront of that, most don't exist today. So I hope none of them necessarily dominate the space because nobody wants a monopoly in any way. And as long as there's competition, innovation is going to breed, and we're going to get, they're going to continue to keep each other in check, and it's the American way. So I hope not. We're not betting necessarily on any one of the partners. We're invested in all of them, like they're invested in Origin and in Alienware and some of our other partners as well. Competition's good. Competition keeps us all in check. Sometimes he one-ups me, sometimes I one-up him, but that's the ones who end up benefiting the most are gamers, right? So we hope both continue to thrive together. They both grow rapidly. They both do well, HTC and Oculus. And we hope other competitors come into this space as well, and they each carve out their niche. There's opportunities for somebody to come in and build a $999 headset that is higher end. There's opportunities for someone to come in and solve for an even wider field of view. There's someone to come in and solve for the cable problem that we have with these headsets right now. I mean, there's so many problems. I mean, it's just such a fertile opportunity for there to be so much innovation and so many companies and startups and things to emerge out of this.
what about, so one of the things we haven't really touched on, which was hyped up a few years back, but not necessarily hugely in the game space, is AR. Do you guys think AR still has any place in the market, or is it sort of a stepping stone, or what are your thoughts?
Well, AR is amazing. I mean, VR is phenomenal. It's here right now. AR has been around for a long time. So you can play an AR game right now just with a 3DS. There's cell phone games you can play in AR. So AR is not new. Will it be next after VR? Maybe. There's some amazing things being done. There's some local companies in South Florida with AR. So AR is, I guess you could say it's next, even though it's been around. But time will tell. I mean, everything's so new. We have all these headsets coming out right now. Content is king. So the content is really going to rule the world. It's not like HTC or Oculus are going to rule the world. The software is going to rule whatever that software is. And if somebody makes a killer app that's AR only, and there's AR headsets out there, then maybe that'll take over. But AR is coming. It's definitely there, but it's not ready yet. VR is the hotness, the new hotness. I mean, there's always the new hotness, right? There's 3D, there's 4K, now it's VR. AR maybe is the next hotness.
I think I heard a couple. What is AR? Do you guys want to explain what AR is?
Sure. It's so VR is virtual reality. VR means you put on a headset, you're completely inside of that virtual environment. You don't see anything in the real world. You're totally virtual. AR is augmented reality. So you see this room in front of you, but there's fake stuff on top of it. There's rendering on top of it. So it's a combination of virtual reality and your actual reality.
So I'll give you some examples to help explain how they may be used differently. In AR, today, if I had an AR headset on, and this doesn't exist just yet, in mass producible form, so don't go out there trying to buy an AR headset because you can't do it just yet, but you will in a few years, actually not too distant future. All of you who have a Facebook or Instagram or a Snapchat profile, okay? In my AR glasses, it'll have facial recognition, it'll know everybody that's sitting in here right now, and if you have a public profile, it'll tell me what your name is, when your birthday was, whatever you decided to share with me will be a little bubble over your head. I would be the only one that sees it because I have the AR headset on right now. I could, for example, come in here and I can share something within this geographical location. So it knows I'm in Miami-Dade, Wolfson, second floor, building number, whatever this is. And I could have decided to put something here, like let's say photographs on the walls or on the floor or on the ceiling, or a 3D virtual character or something in the middle of the room. And Kevin, my friend, whenever he decides to come into this building, he will see, because he's a friend of mine through my social media channel, he will see everything that I left here for him to go see. Not too differently than when I go to his Facebook page, I can see whatever he decided to share on his Facebook page for me. So think of AR as that. There's 100 million other use cases for it as well. The primary difference between VR and AR, like Kevin described, is VR completely consumes your vision and it puts you into a virtual space. AR, augmented reality, augments the real world. I think there's a future for both of them to coexist. The analogy I draw is VR is similar to your TV or to your movie theater. It's where you go, or your gaming system. It's where you go to completely immerse yourself in something virtual. AR will be similar to your smartphone. It's something that you'll carry with you everywhere you go, and it'll augment that minute, that second, that environment, whatever you need or want at that time. It'll augment that experience for you at that given time. The performance requirements of the two of them are completely different. VR requires an incredible amount of horsepower. AR doesn't necessarily require an incredible amount of horsepower. You shouldn't make a AR headset nearly as bulky as a VR headset, otherwise people are going to feel a little awkward carrying that around with them everywhere they go. So you have a bunch of different issues you need to solve with AR, which is why it's a little bit further out. Not that further out, but it's a little bit further out. So, I mean, these are just, hopefully that gives everybody a clear picture as to kind of what the differences are. And it's real. I know it sounds a little Star Trek-ish and all that stuff, but this stuff is real. If you want to do a little bit of research on what is available or I should say, what is already being produced today, Microsoft has a project called HoloLens, which is kind of like a Star Trek-ish visor, which does augmented reality. It's a real product. They've announced, I think the price is $3,000. It's going to be a developer solution only initially. But this stuff's not sci-fi. This is real stuff.
Would you consider like the Google Cardboard stuff, like the ghetto version of AR, or how would you place that? Like,
if you want to do ghetto comparisons, I would say Google. I'll get Cardboard is a ghetto VR. I would say Google Glass is ghetto AR.
$1,600 ghetto AR. Yeah. All right, so I think I've asked enough questions. You guys want to switch over to Q&A from the audience?
Sure.
Or do you guys want to make one last comment or talk about one last thing before we switch to Q&A?
I think we're good.
Yeah?
We have a point over here.
Okay. So who wants to ask a question? Johnny?
Nobody's talked about competitive gaming, so I know that both Alienware and originPC sponsor teams, both in StarCraft and Counter-Strike and all that. That's other opportunities that are all young people who are not maybe competitive sports football players, or is there an ability for them to get involved with that? So maybe talk a little bit about that side of things.
Sure. Do you want to repeat the question?
So the question was, what's the landscape like for competitive gaming as a professional sport and a professional opportunity for young people, right? Or in general?
So esports is basically, the key word of what people are calling it. Esports is another one of those things that is blowing up right now. Everybody says, well, it's new, it's awesome. It's been around for many, many years. And basically, anybody that can do anything in this world really, really well, and can do it better than 99% of the people in the world, they're going to get paid to do it. They're going to get paid well. So esports is blowing up because a lot of people are tuning in online to watch all these esports athletes play various games better than 99% of the people in the world can play that game.
Do you think we're going to see esports surpass regular sports from a monetary standpoint?
I mean, it's a matter of time.
I'm sure it surpassed some niche sports. Like I'm sure esports pulls in 10 times more than professional curling. or something.
Well, I mean,
Maybe I don't know about Canada.
there's some of there's traditional sports when you have
Yeah.
NFL,
Right.
you have NFL, NBA,
Right.
NHL, the big ones. But then you look at things like professional golf and other sports like that, professional tennis. And when you compare esports to those type of things, esports is already kicking butt. Just today, I was tuning into MLG for the Counter-Strike Championship. Is I think $1 million is up for grabs. Guess how many people were watching that when I tuned in?
What, 2 million? 3 million?
No, not that many people.
Oh, I don't know.
400,000 people
Still, that's
were
a lot.
in the middle,
Simultaneous
in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So actually, when they release their final numbers, it will be in the millions.
Yeah.
But when I clicked on it, at that moment during the day, there were 400,000 people. A lot of people will come, watch a little bit, and come out. So it will be in the millions. So yeah, when they release their numbers, the millions of people will watch this competitive game, Counter-Strike, which was going on today. Most people had no idea it was going on.
I used to play Counter-Strike in college, like 2000. And 98.
Should have gone pro.
No, I couldn't afford an Alienware rig back then, so my home DIY kit wasn't powerful enough, and I also didn't have the skill set for that.
So, outside of the 4-year events like the Olympics or the World Cup, like the non-annual events, I should say, do you know what the #1 sporting event in the world is? That's an annual. That's not an annual. I'm saying an annual event as an annual event. It's the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the #2 most popular event in the world was the League of Legends Championship in terms of viewership.
Wow.
So if you don't know what League of Legends is, it's a game by a company called Riot. It's the most popular, I think, in total player count. I think it's like 70 million players or something. PC game, only available on PC in the world right now. The Dota 2, which is a game that Valve makes, is the second most popular MOBA, which is a category of a game that League of Legends is. Their prize pool last year, was I think $15 million for the top teams that won in playing their championship called the International. So there's real money to be made here, and there's real opportunity here as well. It's hard to make a game, very hard to make a game that becomes an esports franchise that people compete around, but not too differently than football sport or league or baseball, any one of those other leagues. There's all this opportunity around it to go off and make a ton of money. We sponsor a couple teams, and I'm sure Kevin does too, where this is what they do professionally. They own a house or they rent out a house. They recruit team members, they practice 12 hours a day, they compete against each other, they enter these tournaments, they fly around the world, they stay at really nice hotels, and some of these top players make over $250,000 a year.
Do you think, so while on the same topic, do you think we're going to see in-person like stadium events for esports? Like in Korea and Japan and China, you see that now. You see 20,000 people show up to watch live Counter-Strike or any one of these games. Do you think we'll see that here in the United States?
I don't know if we'll see a dedicated stadium. Have you heard of a dedicated stadium?
One just launched, the Esports Arena in California. I don't know how many people it holds, but the Staples Center has already been sold out for the League of Legends Championship and sold out in, I think, minutes.
Wow.
So in-person
Right, so
esports in the US is already happening.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. I can't really see.
Yeah.
Second row.
It's kind of a follow-up question to the competitive gaming. Everything seems to be merging together with virtual reality or augmented reality and esports. Do you see anything merging in terms of actual physical competitive sports and esports together?
So the question was, do we see anything of the merging of physical sports and esports merging together?
It will happen. I haven't seen it yet, but like I said, anyone that can do anything good, better than 99% of the people in the world, people will pay to watch that person. So there will be some sort of VR esport. We don't know what that is yet. I haven't seen anything, honestly myself. But we see the potential is there. One of the VR games I've played on HTC Vive is a mini golf game. I forgot the name of the game, but it's like DreamWorks or CloudWorks mini golf. And of course, I played the game. I thought I did pretty good. I got a hole-in-one on one of the holes. So what's the first thing I do? I take a screenshot of my score and I upload it and I say, hey, who can beat my score? So gamers are very competitive and they're going to compete, and there will be some sort of VR esport for sure.
I don't know about VR necessarily, and I'll give a kind of a crude example, but kind of esports and real sports have somewhat combined in fantasy leagues. If you think about fantasy football and all the other fantasy sports that are out there, right? You build your own virtual team, and then what happens in the real world kind of impacts what happens in your virtual team, and you compete virtually. So kind of some way they merge there, but I haven't seen even the game that Kevin was talking about.
Wouldn't the perfect blend for something that's like esport or a gaming tech and a real sport or physical sport be something like NASCAR, where you have heads-up AR, heads-up displays, and then streaming the view to people, and letting them, I don't know, somehow interact with the cars or something.
Yeah, there's iRacing. I think iRacing is the #1 gaming league for people to do racing in a video game. And Oculus and HTC, I think they both already work in iRacing. So there's already going to be iRacing leagues where you could walk, check in into the cockpit and see the person and see what they're looking at and when they're shifting gears and things like that.
Didn't Formula E, the electric car racing that was here in Miami last year, didn't they have a live where you could race live against those cars in on your console or something like that?
I think, not VR, but they had something where you could race. I don't know if that was iRacing, but there was a video game that was modeled after the exact same course. And there was like a ghost car of the professional racer. You could see how you would get your butt kicked against that person.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we have a friend, Kevin and I, that started a company, again, a different example than what I think we were alluding to, but it transcends the virtual world and the real world, where you have sports betting in Vegas, very, very popular. If you ever go to a Vegas casino, they've got the huge sports betting, and you can kind of bet on anything sports-wise. He's built a company that bets on esports. He's building a platform to be able to bet on esports, so you can bet on a team, or you can bet on an individual player with similar type. You can bet on certain accomplishments as well, like where the coin toss is going to be in the Super Bowl. You can bet on weird things like who's going to get to 100 points first and stuff like that. So all this stuff is it's transcending. It's all kind of merging in some different ways. It's pretty cool.
So I haven't thought a whole lot about this topic, to be completely honest, but at first blush, in a way I feel like we're almost dodging a question, right? Like we haven't addressed, the idea of the space that's somebody who likes to play football and somebody who likes to play Counter-Strike, and how, if you're very good at both of those things, do you have this other segment that is available? I see the biggest barrier to that kind of merger being sort of the cultural expectation of what each of those two things means, right? So I think a very physical sport means something as far as who you are and what you can do for your culture. And I think even now, even us here who are sitting in this room listening to us talk, we all still have weird kind of derisive, people are sitting in front of a computer for 12 hours every day training Counter-Strike? That's kind of crazy, right? So maybe if we fast forward the culture, 100 years from now, until we get rid of that kind of people who play games for 12 hours a day professionally are kind of weird and not the norm. Maybe once that becomes the norm, then people will start thinking of ways to genuinely merge the two experiences. But right now, I think the physical sort of goals that traditional sports have versus the sort of more mental or sort of twitchy type goals that esports have, I don't see a lot of crossover, honestly.
Cool, thanks, man.
Pim?
Hey, so I have a question. So I develop mobile games myself, and I'm curious. One of the things that I see happening, and I'm really curious about your position on that, specifically at BNU. So mobile processors are getting better, right? So you see games coming out like Vainglory, where there's really, really good quality mobile multiplayer games that require a certain amount of processing power. Do you see gamers moving into that direction, or would you think gamers would be interested in that category, or do you think they would much rather play simpler mobile games, and not go into the more sort of competitive, hardcore gamer experience on mobile?
So, so the question was, with mobile chips getting faster and faster, and the capabilities and the horsepower of the mobile device is getting better and better. Will gamers prefer to keep doing their hardcore gaming off mobile devices, or will they be adopted on mobile? And so,
I think we're continuously going to see the sort of sit-down immersive experience for PC or console continue to be ahead of mobile, right? So yeah, mobile's getting faster, but PCs are also getting faster, right? So it's like when you have that desire to go into an immersive experience and sit down and play a game for an hour or two without anybody bothering you, you don't go to mobile, right? And that's something that mobile developers understand, right? That mobile games are not sit-down games, right? So that would be half of my answer. The other half would be, in a way, the trend for sort of more technology is better has been kind of curtailed in the recent years with the rise of like smaller studios and indie developers that actually opt for less technology, right? And opt for simpler games, simpler 2D pixel art-based games, because there is a market which I think, because as gamers, we have a growing vocabulary of what it means to play a game, right? It's no longer like cool graphics with like, you know, doom splattering blood and like super realistic stuff like that, right? Like, I mean, that's still a huge segment of the market and still a big part of what games can do, but we're, I think, as a culture, starting to understand what a game is, right? Like, it's a system that has rules and you can interact with it in all these interesting ways, and some of them have emergent rules when you combine different things together. And from what I have seen, and certainly some companies have thrown enough money at the problem to solve this, but from what I have seen, if you're making a game that has very high production costs when it comes to the graphic fidelity, or the models, or all that kind of like production level stuff that you're putting into the game, the time and effort and ability to be agile and to experiment with sort of the more gamey kind of puzzly mechanics of the underlying game is lost, right? In fact, most companies that do sort of traditional AAA game development have a sort of what they call a pre-production phase, which is very short, a couple of months or so, in which they develop their core systems, and then the rest of the year or 2 years or whatever the development cycle is essentially just asset integration, right? So that just goes to that just demonstrates how if you make a game that's very rich in sort of graphic fidelity, then usually it suffers in sort of the sort of gameplay aspect, right? So a couple of sort of different angles to your question. I think there could be a market for that in the future. I don't see the sit-down games coming to mobile. And I think historically we've seen that play out. That anytime you try to build like a very immersive sort of sit-down game on mobile, it just doesn't really do that well.
We tend to be fixated on what's going to win and everything else is going to die, and you know, I think time has proven that there are certain environments where different games thrive, and it's not necessarily their graphics, it's not necessarily the story, it's several different elements, and to your point, I think we're getting smarter about discovering what those elements are exactly, but it's really around how fun it is and how effective it is at capturing its player. But if you look at the games that are leading in mobile today, they're not the most graphically intense games. If you look at the games that are leading in PC, they're not the most graphically intense games. And you look at the games that are leading in console, and they're not leading because they're necessarily graphically intense. It's because they're entertaining, or they're very solid franchises and people are bought into the franchises, or they're social and people are having a great time playing with 2, 3, or 4 people in the living room environment, which is what that environment enables, versus the PC. Up to now, pretty much, before we started really putting PCs in living rooms, and still at a small scale, where you had your PC was kind of like an office or your bedroom, and it was on a 25-inch, 24-inch monitor, and that was more for like a one-to-one experience. And then on your smartphone, I mean, I don't see a lot of people that sit in their office. I don't go to a lot of people's houses and watch them sit in their office, but it's kind of awkward to be sitting in your office in front of your computer playing a game on a smartphone, right? You're going to play that when you're on the toilet, or you're on the road, or you're in the drive-through waiting for the line to go through or something. It's that environment calls for the entertainment that is suited for it, and as long as there's compelling entertainment, people find it entertaining, and it serves the purpose of what it's intended to serve, it's going to thrive. I don't think graphics necessary. I know for sure a fact graphics aren't going to be like the one thing that there isn't any one thing that just says you can hit a home run if you do this for any game.
Cool. Peter, you have a question?
It's not really a question. It was the merger of AR and physical sports, drone racing. Drone racing is good, because that's
So Peter was saying that there's a marriage of AR and sports was drone racing, which isn't the owner of the Dolphins like owning a drone racing league or something like that? No? Maybe?
The video was at Dolphin Stadium,
Oh,
but I don't know if he owns it.
Okay. Back in the corner.
I have two questions. The first one is, just like the internet, I think they estimate 65% of the traffic is pornography. No one's discussed porn, which is, I mean, virtual reality, and see, you're all thinking it. None of you would ask
it
it.
makes sense because Blu-ray or HD video, Blu-ray 1, because that's what the porn was.
Correct. If you look at pornography.
Why did our phones get bigger?
Pornography is kind of an indicator of, because there's so much money in it, an indicator of where things are going to go in the rest of the market. So that's one question. What do you think is going to, how is that going to occur, and where do you think the money's going to be, and do you think they're going to co-opt a lot of the VR? And the second thing that you haven't really discussed is advertising, because the advertisers, just like they ruin, they ruin a lot of things, in my opinion, on the web, and now on mobile phone. This is another opportunity for them to ruin our lives.
So, so I'm going to rehash the questions or summarize them. So the first part of the question was, how is porn driving adoption or innovation in AR, VR, right? That's sort of the gist of it. And then the second one was, how is advertising going to ruin our lives in AR and VR? And so traditionally though, like the porn industry, which I think is big here in South Florida, has been a driver of technology. They were the first to invent online credit card processing, streaming video, and a bunch of other things, and DVD and adoption.
They're the reason we have Twitch, right? What's Twitch? It's porn cam for gamers.
So it was either this week or last week that Pornhub announced their VR channel. So VR porn it's already there. It's out there. It's free, and it's actually going to help the headsets. It's going to help VR gaming because there are more people who want VR, no matter who knows what they're doing with it, if they're doing their whatnot. But essentially, that's going to get VR into more homes. The honest truth, that's going to get VR into more homes. And what happens when there's a lot more people consuming VR? Then a lot more developers say, wow, there's more money for me to make because there's more people that can potentially buy my games. So
should you be advertising originPC on Pornhub?
We already do.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding. Maybe you can make an introduction for me so I can. Actually, Pornhub does some advertising to gamers. So, so porn is definitely going to actually help the VR headsets. And it's out there. It's gonna get into people's homes, get headsets out there. The second part of the question, advertising, that's a great question. I haven't heard anyone talk about advertising in VR yet at all. And it's going to happen. You're right. It's going to be intrusive. It's going to happen. It's up to us as consumers to fight it off in a sense. If there's a game out there that has a bunch of ads in it and a bunch of people are buying it, well, guess what? There's going to be more games with ads because the consumers bought it. So I don't know how advertising is going to really affect VR, and it's going to feel a lot more intrusive. If I'm on a web page, I see an ad, I can run ad blocker or I can just ignore it. If I'm in a VR space and I'm really immersed and I feel like I'm in there, and then an ad pops up, it's going to be offensive.
I mean, I could see this being like, what was it, Second Life, which back in the day had commercial locations and commercial product placements and stuff like that. That could totally be the case in these games.
How did the community react to that?
Oh, well.
So the Second Life community, like American Apparel put a store in the Second Life world. So to explain that really quick, Second Life was a massive multiplayer game where you could live a second life in a virtual gaming world. And American Apparel put a store in there, and they ran a commercial inside the game live. The community didn't like that, and they actually created all sorts of dildos and things, and they flew it in the background of the commercial. So that's what you love about the gaming community. I mean, they'll fight back. So.
Yeah. But do you think if it had do you think if American Apparel had made their product placement or ad actually make the gaming experience better for the gamers somehow, then it would have been adopted, or accepted, or embraced?
Sure. There's a way to do advertising correctly where you enhance the experience and you're organically part of the experience. I mean, gamers are a tight community and they sniff out non-gamers and corporations, and they say, I don't like that. But if they feel like, wow, this company is also a gamer, like they're one of us, then they're more open to accepting that advertisement.
So, where you see ad-supported games or ad-supported content in general is on usually free content, right? Usually free games that are ad-driven, or websites that you get in there for free. There's no subscription or anything, and you're getting the ad, and that's how they make their money. Because I see VR, as we've all underscored, as a sit-down sort of immersive experience that you're gonna go ahead and sit down. You've bought this several $100 piece of equipment plus the $700 or $1,000 piece of Alienware PC or whatever you're doing to enable that, or console, right? When consoles are able to support it. You have also probably engaged in a premium purchase of a $60 game, right? To sit down with and experience inside your VR headset, and so ads are not so much sort of going to be part of the business model, I don't think. You know, could there be a future in which we're sitting down on the couch and browsing for free games in our VR headset and there are ads popping up? Possibly. I don't see that as sort of the I don't fear for my life being ruined by ads in VR quite yet.
But if you watch free porn in VR, you're likely going to see ads.
Ads for OriginPC and Alienware.
Are you speaking from experience, or?
Alright, there's a question over in the middle and back.
Yeah.
I can't see what
For the panel, what would be, in your experience, VR and AR, what's your favorite application or game that's out there right now that you've encountered working on? What's your favorite?
So the question was, what's your favorite VR or AR game that's out there in the market?
Gaming or application?
Or application?
Yeah.
So this one's not released yet, but you guys might have seen trailers for it. I know the folks who are developing it. Fantastic Contraption is coming to VR. It's going to launch with Oculus or I forget which. There's this whole new space for games that is sort of full room VR, right? That's what they're calling it, in which they're banking on getting into people's houses who have the space, right? The suburbs, there are places where space is not a commodity, and saying, okay, you can dedicate this whole kind of 8x8 space or 6x6 space or however big to play this game. And I see that as a potential segment of the market that, there's my VR room, right? And I go in here and I play VR stuff and I walk around and build my fantastic contraption. And I mean, if you guys have seen the trailer, it looks really cool. So I'm putting my money on that one.
I was talking to Kevin about this earlier. I sat in a demo called Toy Box from Oculus. It's actually where I met their founder for the first time, Palmer. Was in a VR world, which is just really ironic and pretty cool. But I had done a bunch of VR demos over the last 4 years, and every demo I've done has been me and the experience, and I'm interacting in the experience. And the first time you do it, it's amazing, and then every time after that, it's awesome. But it's never as amazing as the first time you did it. Toy Box was the first time that two people were interacting, me and Palmer, in a virtual world. And as we were interacting with each other, we could manipulate the world, kind of like the Matrix, in any which way that we wanted to. So 1 minute, he shoots me with a ray gun, and I'm this big. And I felt this big. And there's no other way to feel this big, except in the real world or in this VR world. You can't really get that feeling in a flat screen. And when I shrunk down to be this small, I got scared because I had this massive giant in front of me, and that presence it just makes you feel insecure, right? And then his voice changed, and I suddenly felt that small, and that was amazing. I had never felt that way before because I'm 6'4", so I've never had to feel that way. But then there was this, he was throwing, so he brought me back to a regular size. He was throwing these boomerangs around and I was shooting them. We were playing ping pong. And keep in mind, I have an Oculus Touch, which hasn't come out yet. It's coming out a little bit later this year. An Oculus Touch controller in my hand. And if you haven't seen it, it's like this cylindrical disc and it kind of rests on your hand. And then it has this little, kind of like a D-pad on it. So that's what's in my hand. But because I'm playing ping pong in VR, and I'm doing this motion, I could have sworn I had a ping pong paddle in my hand. Because your brain is used to it. If you're doing this, and it just it closes the gaps for you, and it just fools you, and you're focused on the game, you're not focused on how fake the controller is that you have in your hand, and I actually thought I was playing ping pong with this guy. So that was remarkable. That's called Toy Box. If you want to see videos of it online, it'll give you like 10% appreciation for how amazing it is. That's the most amazing thing I've seen. And after seeing that, it made a lot of sense to me why Facebook would buy this company, because it is an opportunity for being a massively social, a next massively social media platform for a much greater level of immersion of social media. I mean, it's a whole different level. It's hard to explain it, it's hard for you to appreciate it until you experience it.
I haven't tried that demo yet, so I definitely have to check that out. One of the demos that I've tried that's one of my favorites is Job Simulator. Don't know if anyone's heard of this, but it's set in the future, and in the future all robots have taken over all jobs. So there's no more jobs for humans. So humans, we play this game called Job Simulator, where we simulate these things that we used to do called jobs. And they put you in these different environments, like you're a chef in one scenario. Another scenario, you're in a cubicle in an office, and there's robots telling you what to do. Like, hey, check your email, and have some coffee, have some donuts. That's the game. And it's freaking amazing. Yeah, just because you're 100% in there. So when we bring people by the office and we're like, what demo should we show them? We always show them that one first. And people that have played VR before love it. People have never tried VR before love it. Because it's a simple experience. Everybody can relate to working in a cubicle and having coffee and checking your email. And then, so that's the basic of the game, but then as you're there, you start messing with things. Throwing donuts into other cubicles, finding discs and playing Flappy Bird on your computer, which you can do in the virtual world, in the virtual game. So that's one of my favorites, Job Simulator.
Cool. All right, so next question. You already answered it.
It's not a question.
Okay.
I want to see how many people are actually pre-ordered Oculus or HTC Live? I just wanted to see.
All right. That was
Pretty good number,
That was
right?
like 8 people or 10 people. It's not bad.
You want to repeat the question?
So, all right. How many people? Raise your hand if you pre-ordered Oculus Live or any of the other VR headsets. So, like 9 people. Cool. All right. So next question. I think we have time for like one more question. 2 more questions. All right. Middle of the back. I guess. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a venture capitalist and I'm looking to get into the space. And I keep getting approached by a lot of people that are trying to do something with VR and gaming. And I keep reading that the exciting stuff is about 4 to 6 years away. How would you guys suggest that I get into this space? And what am I looking for when I'm entering into the space?
So the question was, he's a VC, he wants to invest in the space and get into space, but the time horizon is 4 to 6 years. What do you suggest?
I disagree. The time horizon was Monday. That's when the clock started. That's when Oculus headsets arrived at customers' homes. There's 30 games available on Oculus on day one. Maybe they already launched more, but on Monday there was only 30 available. HTC is going to have 30 or more. What to look for, where to start, is get a headset and experience it. Because the level of wow that you will feel and you will see will tell you everything you need to know. The hard part will then be, which is the hardest part of being a VC, is picking and choosing the right opportunities. But telling somebody how disruptive and amazing VR is, it's ineffective. You have to experience it yourself. And I know it looks goofy, and a lot of people pass by and they're like, I don't want to put the headset on. The thing I love to do the most is watch people put VR on for the first time. Because the wow, the oh my God, this is going to change the world. Do you have any porn? It's, I mean, it's obvious it's going to be, and there's not many things that we've come across, or I have, and I work in the tech space, and I look at some of the coolest shit in the world. That moment, the reactions that I see, that I have myself in, they rarely happen. I don't get that kind of reaction when I put the latest notebook in front of people. You know, they say, oh, that's a pretty nice product. I don't get, wow, this is going to change the world, or do you have any porn? I don't get those questions. So immerse yourself in it. Don't just do a demo. Buy them. You're a VC, you have a shitload of money. Go buy a ton of them. And play all the games. Some of them are going to be good, some are going to be great, some are going to suck. No different than the PC, no different than mobile phones, no different than any of these other platforms. And then think beyond the game. I gave some examples earlier about all these other industries that are going to be disrupted as a result of this. Dell today, we announced that our workstation business, the guys who make, our team that make workstations that create movies and games and all digital content that's out there, I mean, we have like 50% market share. They're focusing on VR solutions as well. So just like we're building VR systems, Origin and us, our workstation team is building VR, not to play the games, to make the games, and then to cater to all those other customers and examples, the medical companies, the architecture firms, all those other firms that are knocking down our door saying, please give us the hardware. We have the headset, but we need hardware that works and that's turnkey.
All right, last question, all the way in the back with the glasses.
Does Alienware have any plans to release their own VR headset?
Today we don't, quite honestly. Our partnerships with Oculus and with HTC are extremely important to us. If we created our own headset, it would make those very contentious relationships. If you notice, what we do as Alienware is we try and focus on doing one thing and doing it exceptionally well, which is building gaming PCs. We don't do a lot of peripherals, we don't do a lot of accessories, we don't do a ton of headsets. We just build great PCs. And we want Oculus to build the best headset they possibly can. We want HTC to build the best headset they possibly can. And all the other headset manufacturers that are going off and investing in it, we want it to be their #1 priority, their #1 focus, and for them to do a great job, and then us kind of partner with everybody. That's our focus right now.
Cool. All right, so I want to thank you guys for participating and taking time out of your busy schedules. I hope that next time we do a gaming event, we'll talk about, bring you guys back and talk about what's next year for the next year. And hopefully there's monumental changes and improvements and, you know, things that we didn't even, or you guys didn't envision have happened, you know, but, so thank you again for coming out and, what? And don't forget, this weekend on Saturday, we're hosting a workshop. So for all of you who are interested in learning how to get started writing games, Aviana's teaching a course on getting started with Unity. So that's on Saturday, so there's details on the Refresh Miami website. I also want to thank our sponsor, AT&T Gigapower. Let's give them a round of applause for bringing this experience to Miami. And we all know playing games online is so much better when you have a gigabit of bandwidth. So make sure to go check to see if your house is available, or if Gigapower is available at your house, which you might be surprised. And thanks to Miami-Dade College for hosting us. So we'll see you guys on Saturday for the workshop, and if not Saturday, then we'll see you guys in April for the next event, and details will be posted in the next couple weeks. And thanks for coming, everybody. And if you didn't get pizza and sodas, if there's still some out there.